Good morning, Facebook. So today is day 18 of my mental health awareness challenge. And today I'm on letter O, O as in Oscar. And I'm going to be talking about something fairly common, something that is also not very much understood. And I'm talking today about obsessive compulsive disorders. I'm sure that now and again we've had phrases like, is so obsessive with football, or is so obsessed with Manchester United or Liverpool, or is so obsessed with rugby. Or you hear things like she's so obsessed with her shoes or with her handbags. You hear things like he's a compulsive liar. The reality is that those are things that we hear commonly. However, that's not obsessive compulsive disorder. Obsessive compulsive disorder is an anxiety disorder. It's a condition, it's a worry disorder. And the way to know it is that it interferes with the normal functioning of life. It's such that the person who has these thoughts and who displays these symptoms is such that it interferes with their functioning in their work, in their studies, in their relationships, and in their general enjoyment of life and their quality of life. So what is obsessive compulsive disorder? There are three things that make up obsessive compulsive disorder. One of them is obsessional thoughts. What are obsessional thoughts? Obsessional thoughts are intrusive thoughts. They are thoughts that are irrational. The person who thinks them knows that they are not rational, but yet they can't shift them. They can't break free from them. It's like they are rogue intruder thoughts. They intrude into the thought realm, and the person feels that they have no control over them. So they are like gate crashers. They just gate crash into the thought realm. And there are things like somebody just can't stop feeling that they need to keep washing their hands, because if they don't wash their hands, they're going to get contaminated with germs. I know that that might not be the most suitable illustration at this time given the COVID-19 crisis. However, the other illustration to give is somebody who thinks that they've got to keep touching things 2 times or 3 times or in a particular number of times in order to avert a family member from dying or some sort of evil from befalling them. So these are thoughts that are irrational. The person who thinks them knows they're irrational, but they can't shift them. So that's the obsessional part of it, is the thoughts. The other part of it is the emotion. The emotion is actually the emotion of anxiety. The person who has these thoughts becomes anxious about them. And that then moves us on to the third component of obsessive compulsive disorder, which is the compulsions. The compulsions are the actions that the person engages in. So for instance, the person that thinks that they keep having these intrusive thoughts, these irrational thoughts that come into their mind that something is going to happen, something evil is going to happen to them if they don't touch things 3 times or touch things 7 times. The compulsive part of their OCD or their obsessive compulsive disorder is the touching. So, and what they find is when the thought comes into their mind that something is going to go wrong if they don't do something, they will not be able to rest. They will not be able to concentrate. They would feel so restless until they touch. Maybe they touch an item 3 times or they touch something 8 times. It's always a particular thing that they are doing to relieve the anxiety. And that cycle continues over and over again. Some people describe it's like being on a treadmill forever, perpetually just being on a treadmill. And that's the way the mind keeps working. And it's very draining for people. They find it very, very draining. And the other thing is it interferes with their lives. Some people are not able to they get late for their appointments. They are not able to concentrate at work. They are not able to even engage in life generally because their mind is always on overdrive. It's always obsession, compulsion with anxiety. So there's an obsessive thought, there is anxiety, and then somebody then engages in a compulsive act to try and avert that anxiety and relieve that anxiety. So the question is, what sort of obsessive thoughts do people get? The obsessive thoughts could come in form of thoughts, just like it could be it could also be very obscene words that just keep shooting into people's minds and it's out of character for them. It could be a visual image. It could be, some people have an image of stabbing themselves or stabbing somebody else, when in actual sense that's nothing they've ever done or nothing that they plan to do, and they can find that very distressing. Or it could even be graphic images that are very harrowing, like maybe people involved in accidents, very horrible experiences like that. Or it could be doubts in form of maybe somebody drove down a road 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and during that drive down their road, a young child suddenly crossed the road in their path and they had to slam on their brakes. And then suddenly 5 years on, or maybe 2 weeks on, they begin to get these thoughts that did they actually hit that young girl that ran across the road? Could it have been that their car hit her? The question is, in the reality, if the car hit that young girl, by now the police would have been on their heels. By now they would have been prosecuted. By now something would have happened. However, they can't shift that thought. It comes in doubts. There's also the fact that it could come as ruminations. It's like every decision in their life becomes a big deal, even simple decisions like deciding on what to have for dinner, deciding on what to wear to a party. It just becomes such a big deal that they could spend the next 2 or 3 hours on trying to weigh the pros and cons of something that is so inconsequential. And so those are the obsessional thoughts. The compulsive acts, like I said, could be things like checking things. It could be things like touching things. It could be cleaning. Some people keep cleaning, and the obsessional thoughts usually associated with cleaning is the fact that maybe somebody's going to catch germs. And particularly at this time of the COVID-19 crisis, people who have had obsessive compulsive disorder relating to cleaning rituals, that has worsened because there is now even a real threat in terms of COVID-19. So it could be cleaning, it could be checking. Some people would get late to work because they could go around their home 20 times trying to check the doors, trying to check the windows. And when they check around once, they're about to go out of the door, they check around again, because suddenly as they want to go through the door, they remember, oh, did I actually check? They go back and check again. And then there are people who, I've talked about cleaning, I've talked about checking, and some people is counting. They're always counting things, or they're always ordering things. They're always arranging things to make sure that they're in order. Now, so those are the type of compulsive acts that people engage in. And like I said, the emotions behind this is always anxiety. Now, what are the causes? How common is it? We know that in the UK, for instance, 1 in 50 people experience obsessive compulsive disorder at some point in their lives. And the figures show that about 1 million people in the UK actually have the condition. Now, we do also know that, in fact, some famous people that you know do have the condition. It's been said that the very pioneering nurse, Florence Nightingale actually had the condition. I do also know that David Beckham, the famous footballer, himself actually said that he's got the condition. So there are people that we know. And the interesting thing is that being obsessional can be of benefit in certain jobs. For instance, if you work in air traffic control, or you work in health and safety, where things have to be on the letter, where things have to be checked and checked again, that can come in very handy for you, because that's an area in which you will naturally lend yourself, those traits or those symptoms will naturally lend itself to the work that you do. So in terms of what are the causes of obsessive compulsive disorder, we don't really know what the causes are. However, what we do know is that, for instance, it could be genetic in terms of the fact that it runs in some families. So occasionally you find that it runs in families. The other thing we do know is that some people who have obsessive compulsive disorder have an imbalance in the chemicals in their brain, particularly a brain chemical called serotonin, which is responsible for mood. That is known to be depleted in the brains of people who have obsessive compulsive disorder. The other thing that we do know is that it can also be associated with childhood adversity in form of people who have either experienced bullying as a child or who have experienced abuse, particularly people who have a cleaning obsession many times. if you dig down into the deep of the cleaning obsession, I'm not saying it's all the time, but many, many times there might be a history of sexual abuse that has occurred at some point in their lives. And the psychological explanation for the cleaning compulsion is that somebody who feels unclean by the acts that has been done to them, and they are trying to clean themselves up. The other thing we do know is that there are certain personalities that are more prone to obsessive compulsive disorder. So if you're a very finicky person, you are very methodical, you like things being done to perfectionist order, then you might be prone to obsessive compulsive disorder as well. We do also know that life events, people who are experiencing, who suddenly get put into a position of responsibility, or maybe they've got a new job with additional responsibility, or they've got a new baby, or life changes to put them in position of leadership they're not prepared for, might actually begin to compensate by having that disorder, being obsessional to the point of actually not being able to function well in their lives. We also do know, and this is very interesting to church community, to people who have a faith, to people who have a religious background, that if somebody has been brought up in a very strict religious setting, and I want to say strict religious setting now, I'm not saying that. So sometimes when it's about religion, it's about rules and regulation rather than relationship. Sometimes it may be that those children, when they've been brought up like that, may actually turn out with obsessive compulsive disorder. And that's also a cue for parents to allow children to actually find their own faith by encouraging them rather than by compelling them. Right. So what's the treatment for obsessive compulsive disorder? I think the first thing is to get help. A lot of people who have obsessive compulsive disorder, one, may not recognize that it's a problem, or two, they feel ashamed to get help. But I want to reassure you today that it's quite a fairly common condition. Like I said, about 1 million people in the UK suffer from the condition. So it's not something to be ashamed of. And your GP will always be the first place to go to in America, and in America and in Canada, to be your family physician. So what are the options that are available? Talking therapy is a very hot thing with obsessive compulsive disorder, and we know that it works. What happens is that psychologists or therapists help the person to be able to feel comfortable with getting exposed to those thoughts that they have, the obsessional thoughts, but not responding with the compulsions. So psychologists will train you to help you to get to the point in which you feel more comfortable with your obsessions. You can tolerate them and you don't have to respond to them. And progressively, you can tolerate the tension as you delay your response towards the obsessional thoughts. The other thing is that sometimes there's also cognitive therapy. Cognitive therapy is really about helping you to change your view about the obsessions. What's the worst thing that could happen, for instance? Being able to look at those obsessional thoughts in a different way. And the other things that people could do, antidepressants is quite a common thing that is prescribed as well. In fact, the National Institute of Clinical Excellence, which is the national body that regulates treatments in the UK generally, says that the best way to approach obsessive compulsive disorder is to use both talking therapy as well as medication. And we do know that both of them can be very effective, and that people can actually recover from those symptoms completely. Also, reading up about the condition can also be very helpful in terms of reading up. There are 2 books that are commonly recommended, or out of many. The common ones are, there's one book called Break Free from OCD, and there's also Living Life to the Full. Living Life to the Full is by Dr. Chris Williams, who is a professor of psychiatry, particularly of cognitive behavioral therapy. And I don't remember the name of the author of Break Free from OCD now, but if you go on Amazon, it will be there, Break Free from OCD. The other things that we know helps people with OCD is to actually join a support group where other people have the symptoms, because then it can help people to find out that this is something that is common and that there are other people that go through the same experience. Also, getting support from your family and friends could be a good thing in terms of helping them to know what you are going through, because it can be a very lonely place just being inside your own head and struggling with all those doubts and all those feelings. The other thing we do know is that there are certain charities, particularly across the world, but the ones in the UK are the ones I want to name today. There's the OCD Action, and that's ocdaction.org.uk. OCD Action as in ocdaction.org.uk. There's also OCD UK, that's ocduk.org. Those are two organizations that actually support people, and there's plenty of information on those websites. There's also plenty of information on the Royal College of Psychiatrists website. Royal College of Psychiatrists website is www.rcpsych, that's rcpsych.ac.uk. That's rcpsych.ac.uk. And there's also the Mental Health Foundation website that has plenty of information on obsessive compulsive disorder. So really, the message out there is that if you've got obsessive compulsive disorder, if you can relate to any of these symptoms, there's hope for you. You don't need to suffer in silence. What you just need to do is to start by seeking help, and that starts from your general practitioner or your family physician. I do really hope that you found this video of benefit. I'm looking forward to recording tomorrow's video, which is video 19. So I'm quite excited that we are getting to the end of this, and it's been very exciting for me. I just want to say thank you again for all those who've been listening. Thank you for all those who've been sending me personal messages. For instance, I received a message today, and there was a suggestion about the things that I could talk about in the videos. I really do appreciate your getting to me, reaching out to me, giving suggestions about things that you think people may need, or the issues that are in our community regarding mental health that needs to be addressed. Thank you very much for doing that. And once again, I'd like to give a shout out to my very dear friend, Reverend Victoria Lawrence, who nominated me on this Mental Health Awareness Challenge. Thank you very much for the nomination. So I look forward to tomorrow's video, and have a great day. Bye for now.